Okay, recording this video before the open on Wednesday, 5th of January 2011, and I might be missing the open in today's trading just because I have to go to the airport today, but I thought it was important just to put up a video on the site. We had some pretty interesting activity yesterday and over the last few days. I just want to show you just a couple of charts. First of all, a longer term chart, the 13,500 tip bar chart, just to give you a sense of what's been happening over the last couple of days. So this was Tuesday's activity, and this was Monday's activity, and then this was kind of the Christmas New Year weeks where we had kind of very low volume and volatility, and we kind of crept higher. But on Monday we kind of exploded up to these highs, 1272 up here, and just want to draw your attention to what the better momentum is showing us. The first thing, that when we hit kind of 1272, we had all of these exhaustion buying volume signals up here. Right at the top we got a big professional blue bar and a bearish divergence signal there right at the top, just showing us that we've kind of had our exhaustion buying, we've had our decline in buying, plus the professionals are getting out there right at the top. And the market yesterday on Tuesday kind of sold off pretty hard, and you can see on the flip side we've got an exhaustion selling signal that marks the low of the day here on the 13,000 tip bar chart. Now what's interesting to me is the bounce that we had in the afternoon on the E-mini. We came back up to exactly the same kind of levels that we had in terms of exhaustion buying volume here at this point here, and better momentum at the end of the day, and we had a lot of blue professional bars kind of coming into that close. So that during that entire rally period we had a lot of professional bars, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the market kind of tops out at about 67. For me, this is what I call a little pattern called the last roll of the dice. It shows that we had our exhaustion buying hitting the highs at 72, and this is the first kind of flush of selling where the the market kind of realizes there's a change in trend likely developing, and they kind of rush for the doors, and you see this kind of strong downtrend move ending in a selling exhaustion signal here. And then the rally that we get back up to try and test the recent highs at 72, we have a fairly weak rally, but coming into this rally the amount of buying that went on was as extreme as we got coming into the peak, but the amount of distance that we were able to travel was nowhere near getting up to 72, showing that there was increased selling kind of coming in. When you look at these bars in using better volume, you can see that these are high churn bars, showing that the range is kind of compressed and the volume is high, showing me that the sellers are coming in at these points and stopping any rally going forward. So this is like a test back up. The amount of buying, we've kind of exhausted ourselves in terms of buying. We've only reached 67 on the highs here. Professionals have come back in, and then the overnight sessions we've kind of cracked another 10 points to the downside. So could well see a little bit of rally at the open, because we had some Rambo bars on some lower time frames and so on, and so we could kind of come back up. But this is the important point here, that this is what I'm calling a last roll of the dice type pattern, where the professionals, this is their opportunity to finally kind of get short again. They've been getting short up here. We come back up to test, they get short again, and so we could well see Wednesday's activity being pretty strong to the downside. Want to revisit the average trade size chart I showed you a week or so ago. And despite this Christmas New Year period being incredibly slow and low volume, you'd think, well, the professionals have gone away, and my hypothesis is no, the professionals have been extremely active over the last 10 days, kind of getting out of their positions. And you can see here the average trade size over the last week and a half in terms of trading has been markedly higher than it has over this entire rally period. So even on Monday's activity and Friday's activity here, and even yesterday's activity, the average trade size was extremely high. And when you compare that with kind of previous peaks, again, this peak kind of period that we had, this kind of surge in average trade size, this peak in the market back in April, again a surge in average trade size, and now we're creeping up to 7 in terms of an average trade size. That's getting up to these kind of levels that we've seen historically, and there we go, we're kind of reaching for new highs. So just be aware that there's a lot of pundits talking about continuation of the uptrend and the economy's turning around and so on. I'd suggest to you that the professionals have been taking profits up here, and just to watch out over the next couple of days. And then just looking at some multi-markets charts, so on the E-mini here, we've had our flush signals over the last month or so, and coming into these highs you can see all these amateur bars, kind of no demand, Rambo patterns, profit taking and so on, a whole cluster of volume distribution patterns here. A final kind of profit taking pattern up here on the Friday, I think that was, or beg your pardon, that would have been on Monday. Profit taking pattern there. Very weak buying in terms of better momentum. We're starting to slide. Just rolling through some other markets. I mean, a few days ago everybody was talking about crude going to 150 and $4 a gallon petrol at the pumps, all that kind of stuff. Well, we've been up at these 92 levels. Look at these beautiful little Rambo patterns here. I talked about this in an earlier video. This whole series of flush signals, weaker and weaker buying as we go up through these kind of stair-stepping motion up here. And then yesterday's activity was professional down bar. Now, I'm interested to see whether this is one of these kind of the professionals just ran for the exits yesterday, and this bar kind of continues to slide, as you'd have seen in this type of move here, where at the beginning of this kind of downtrending move you get the professionals kind of getting on board quickly, and then the downtrend kind of continues. You can see it again. In this activity. Beg your pardon. In this activity here, on that bar there, where the professionals rushing for the doors and then the market kind of slides. So was this activity an opportunity for the professionals to buy or to sell? And if the high of this bar at 92 is taken out over the next couple of days, so this will show that the professionals are actually buying during Monday's, Tuesday's trade. But if this downtrend kind of continues, this will show this type of a pattern, and we've got a fair few days to go before some kind of low being put on the crude oil. Gold, again, same pattern here of gold. Been talking about this. We had our end of trend warning signal after our exhaustion buying kind of early on in October. Everybody was talking about 1400. We found it very difficult to crack through 1400, and I would suggest there's been a lot of profit taking around here with these professional blue bars at the highs. We had our flush signal, and then if you like, this is almost like kind of a last roll of the dice type pattern here, where we've had the first crack down here, and we've had a weak bounce back up to 1400. The amount of buying that we had coming into this last rally up here was as high as we had in these kind of flush signals and exhaustion signals back up here, but the amount of price expansion that we were able to get into new highs was very, very limited. And then up here we got amateur bars, no demand, stopping volume patterns at a cyclical turning point, and then we've got this large kind of professional down blue bars. So is that going to be the start of some kind of move down, or is this an opportunity for the professionals to actually kind of buy the lows, but sell these highs? Now we'll only know in the next couple of days when we see how the price kind of progresses from here, but just pointing out that the market's fairly weak. We've had our second cyclical turn after an end of trend warning signal here, so for me the market's looking weak. US bond market, 30-year bond market, and I talked about this a couple of days ago in a video. This was this volleyball kind of spike trade down here. You can see that we kind of spiked down into an end of trend warning signal here, very weak selling. We had a bullish divergence signal at this point here, and we're about to crack into kind of a break above this congestion zone here. So if we get a little bit of a rush for the exits today on the equity markets, and everybody kind of rushes into bonds, we'll find interest rates go down, the bond market start to crack into a bit of an uptrend here. So that's what I'll be looking at on this chart. And then copper, it's been incredibly strong up here, but this last move up for me has been led by the amateurs. Rambo patterns, no demand patterns, profit taking, another Rambo pattern right up here at $4.40, and then we've started to weaken over the last few days. But if you look at better momentum, all of this activity is well above the zero line, showing that there's consistent buying over this period. So this is an incredibly strong market. We're not seeing kind of better momentum volumes signals that are kind of close to the zero line, which shows a balance in terms of buyers and sellers. When we're solidly above the zero line here, that just shows that there's an excess of buyers kind of going on. And then lastly, the euro. Not sure about the euro. We've had an end of trend type signal here. We've had our exhaustion selling. We might be seeing a bounce in the euro. with this pattern after this exhaustion selling, but we're starting to roll over. So yeah, for me, I'm I'm unclear in the euro direction of the euro kind of going forward. But just to point out that this 13,500 tip bar chart for me was pretty significant, and the activity that we saw the latter half of Tuesday with this kind of last roll of the dice type pattern here. So just watch out for today's activity. Hope your trading goes well.